Dear participants, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank the organizers for inviting me to this important event, and I apologize for not being able to be with you in person in Geneva today due to family reasons. But I'm glad that through these new technological solutions, I am able to contribute to your discussion. Last year, we celebrated the 20th anniversary of the adoption of the UN Declaration on the Rights of Persons Belonging to National or Ethnic, Religious, and Linguistic Minorities. It provided us a valuable opportunity to assess progress made in the field of minority rights at all levels, and also to look ahead at what further measures should be taken to protect and promote the rights of minorities globally in all regions and in each country. 20 years on, it is timely to ask if enough has been done to address long-standing minority issues and concerns and the situation, in particular of the most disadvantaged minorities, such as those affected by discrimination based on work and descent. Regrettably, in all regions, we are witnessing some disturbing trends and events that I believe require us to intensify our efforts to protect minority rights and to constructively address minority issues and promote intergroup and interfaith dialogue. In some cases, progress has at best been too slow, and we have even witnessed a rising tide of anti-minority sentiment and growing support for extremist movements in several countries and regions. Caste-based discrimination is still a reality faced by many communities in several countries and regions, from Africa through Europe to Asia. And although in most countries there are strong laws prohibiting such discrimination, an implementation gap often exists. While non-discrimination measures are an essential tool and must be in place, minority rights protection frequently requires measures that go beyond non-discrimination and recognize that disadvantaged communities may need focused attention to ensure their equality. Institutionalizing expertise on minority issues assists governments and independent bodies to identify problems involving minorities and their causes, and to develop sustainable solutions that fulfill the rights of minorities and comply with state obligations. Dedicated institutional attention provides necessary impetus for proactive implementation of minority rights, positive measures, consultative and participatory mechanisms and processes, and activities directed towards disadvantaged minorities that are frequently lacking. In its General Recommendations 29, the Third Committee requests states to establish statutory mechanisms through the strengthening of existing institutions or the creation of specialized institutions to promote respect for the equal human rights of members of descent-based communities. The need for specific institutions is also mentioned in the draft UN principles and guidelines for the effective elimination of discrimination based on work and descent, and I quote, "National human rights institutions and specialized institutions should be given power to specifically address the problems faced by affected communities. Governments of affected countries should ensure that where they exist, national human rights institutions and specialized commissions can act independently and effectively in protecting the interests of people affected by discrimination based on work and descent by providing adequate financial, statutory, and personal support. Where such institutions and specialized commissions do not exist, they should be established," and I quote. Recognizing the need for specialized institutions, I have focused my last report to the General Assembly on practical measures to promote the implementation of the Declaration at the national level, and in particular via ensuring institutional attention to minority rights. The Declaration elaborates the rights of minorities and the obligations upon states, and explicitly requires positive measures in legislation, policy, and programming to ensure the full and effective participation of minorities in public life. I believe that the implementation of those obligations is best achieved via a national institutional and policy framework incorporating targeted attention to minority rights. Numerous governments globally have recognized the benefits of such attention and established specialized government bodies and departments. Such bodies often have primary responsibility to design, direct, and lead government policy on minority issues. However, They are most effective when working closely with line ministries and with a mandate to encourage and coordinate mainstreaming of minority issues across all relevant bodies. Dedicated institutional attention also gives a strong signal to minorities and the wider society that the government recognizes and takes seriously minority issues and is investing energy, expertise, and resources into seeking solutions to challenges involving minorities. Attention to minority rights should also be incorporated into the work of independent bodies, including national human rights institutions, ombudspersons, equality bodies, and specialist commissions. Advisory and consultative bodies are another important form of institutional attention. Building on the principle of minority participation, they can help to institutionalize dialogue between government and minorities and to ensure that minority issues are reflected in local and, ideally, national policy and decision-making processes. For example, besides its National Human Rights Commission, Nepal has also established a National Dalit Commission in 2002 in recognition of the fact that caste discrimination and untouchability practices continue. It promotes implementation of national and international law and advocated for the Caste-Based Discrimination and Untouchability Act adopted in May 2011, which criminalized such discrimination in private and public spheres. Among its activities was the organization of a 100-day campaign against caste discrimination in collaboration with the Office of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights in Nepal, launched in September 2011 by the President and the High Commissioner. Institutional attention to minority issues is also essential to change exclusionary practices and discriminatory perceptions about minority groups in wider society that may be institutionalized, including in such bodies as the police service, judiciary, or the media. The activities of institutions mandated to address minority issues and rights should focus both on the causes and the impacts of discrimination, marginalization, and exclusion, and they should work with all sectors of society and public and private bodies. To be effective, these establishments should be attributed appropriate responsibilities, funding, powers, and political status. Institutional attention to minority issues may be particularly important in states in which minority populations are significant, inter-community relations are historically complex, where long-term challenges persist, or where ethnic or religious tensions or conflicts occurred or exist at the moment, because in such cases, addressing the rights and concerns of minorities can constitute an important component of measures to resolve problems and grievances at an early stage and prevent tensions and conflicts arising. At all times, it should be remembered that the full and effective participation of minorities is fundamental. Effective attention can only be achieved with the participation of minorities, both as staff of institutions at all levels and as essential partners in the work of government and independent institutions. I would mention here the vital work and contributions of non-governmental organizations working with and on behalf of minorities, and I encourage all states to support and value the work of such NGO. As we are soon approaching 2015, we should also recognize the importance of such dedicated institutions in working towards the achievement of the Millennium Development Goals. Evidence indicates that today, minorities continue to lag behind in terms of progress to meet the MDGs for many of the most disadvantaged groups, including Roma, Afro-descendants, Dalits, and other minorities globally. The impact of discrimination, social exclusion, and economic marginalization of these groups, and the challenges involved in finding solutions to such barriers in development have not always been fully recognized. In my first report to the Human Rights Council, I urge states to give specific attention to minority groups in the context of their efforts to achieve the goals, to conduct rigorous needs assessment, as well as research into the impact of Millennium Development Goals programs and activities on minorities, and to evaluate the extent to which progress has been made or remains required for minority groups. As my predecessor has also said in her previous report, it must be recognized that poverty within minority communities is both a cause and a manifestation of the diminished rights, opportunities, and social advancement available to the members of that community as a whole. It is not just a lack of income or a daily struggle for basic sustenance. Poor communities are generally less able to participate effectively in political decision making or to access mechanisms of justice when their rights are violated. They suffer from unequal access to education, healthcare, employment, and land. Without a targeted focus on their needs and rights, they will remain disproportionately impoverished. And without a more coherent effort to reduce poverty through targeted strategies that specifically reach out to minority communities, the international community will fail to achieve or sustain the important targets set within the MDGs. As we are shaping now the 2015 development agenda, the post-2015 development agenda, I welcome that particular concerns of caste groups are included into the global consultation, and it is my hope, and I will work towards it, that greater attention will be dedicated to the specifically vulnerable situation of minorities, so that analysis and policies will also focus on groups and not only on individuals or household levels, and on social dimensions instead of plain material measurements of poverty. A key recommendation is that states pay particular attention to minority rights and issues as an essential component of their human rights, equality, and non-discrimination obligations, and as a means to improve that practical implementation of the Declaration on the Rights of Minorities. I thank you for your attention, and I wish you a very successful event.